In the beginning, God created the earth, and then rested. Then God created man, and rested. Then God created woman. And since then, neither God nor man rested. Two blondes were exiting a restaurant when they discovered to their horror that they locked their keys in their car. One of them says to the other, "What do we do? Do you think we should get a coat hanger and pick the lock?" The other blonde thought for a second and said, "No. If we do that, people might think we're trying to break in. How about we get a knife and cut the rubber and pop the lock instead?" The first blonde thought for a moment and said, "No, this won't work either. Because then people will think we're too stupid to use the coat hanger." Feeling exasperated, the second blonde exclaimed, "Well, we better think of something quick, because it's starting to rain, and the sunroof is open." A lady approaches her priest and tells him, "Father, I have a problem. I have two female talking parrots, but they only know how to say one thing." "What do they say?" the priest asks. Embarrassed, the woman replies, "They only know how to say, 'Hi, we're prostitutes. Want to have some fun?'" "That's terrible," the priest exclaimed. "But I have a solution to your problem. Bring your two female parrots over to my house, and I will put them with my two male talking parrots. I have taught them to pray and read the Bible. They will teach your parrots to stop saying that terrible phrase. And your female parrots will learn to praise and worship." "Thank you so much, Father," the woman responded. The next day, the woman brings her female parrots to the priest's house, as agreed. His two male parrots are holding rosary beads and praying in their cage. The lady puts her two female parrots in, with the male parrots. As soon as she shuts the cage door, female parrots say, "Hi, we are prostitutes. Want to have some fun?" One male parrot looks over at the other male parrot and exclaims, "Put the beads away. Our prayers have finally been answered." A minister wound up the services one morning by saying, "Next Sunday, I am going to preach on the subject of liars. And in this connection, as a preparation for my discourse, I would like you all to read the 17th chapter of Mark." On the following Sunday, the preacher rose to begin, and said, "Now, all of you, who have done as I requested, and read the 17th chapter of Mark, please, raise your hands." Nearly every hand in the congregation went up. The preacher smiled, and said to them, "You are the people I want to talk to. As there is no 17th chapter of Mark." A man is talking to his best friend, and says, "I don't know what to get my wife for her birthday. She has everything she needs, and besides, she can afford to buy anything she wants. I'm truly stumped." His friend says, "I have an idea. Why don't you make up a certificate for her that says she can have 2 hours of great sex, any way she wants it? She'll probably be thrilled." The man thinks, that's a great idea. So he does just that. The next day, his friend asks him, "Well, did you take my suggestion? How did it turn out?" "She loved it," the man replied. "She jumped up, thanked me, kissed me on the mouth, and ran out the door yelling, 'I'll see you in 2 hours.'" A cab driver picks up a nun. She gets into the cab and notices that he won't stop staring at her. She asks him why he is staring, and he replies, "I have something I want to ask you, but I don't want to offend you." She says, "My dear son, you cannot offend me. When you're as old as I am, and have been a nun as long as I have, you get a chance to see and hear just about everything. I'm sure that there's nothing you could say or ask that I would find offensive." Encouraged by her words, he says, "Well, I've always had a fantasy to have a nun kiss me." She responds, "Well, let's see what we can do about that. Number 1. You have to be single. And number 2. You must be Catholic." The cab driver gets very excited, and says, "I am single and I'm also Catholic." "Okay," the nun says. "Pull into the next alley." He does as he's told, and the nun fulfills his fantasy with a kiss That would make a hooker blush. But when they get back on the road, the cab driver starts crying. "My dear child," says the nun. "Why are you crying?" "Forgive me, sister, but I have lied to you. I am actually married, and I'm Jewish." The nun smiles at him, and says, "Well, that's okay. Because my name is Kevin, and I'm on my way to a Halloween party." A guy and his date are parked out in the country, away from town, when they start kissing and fondling each other. Just then, the girl stops and sits up. "What's the matter?" the guy asks. She replies, "I really should have mentioned this earlier, but I'm actually a prostitute, and I charge $100 for sex." The man thinks about it for a few seconds, but then reluctantly gets out a $100 bill, gives it to her, and they have sex. After a cigarette, he just sits in the driver's seat, looking out the window. "Aren't we going back to town now?" the girl asks. The man says, "Well, I guess I should have mentioned this before. But I'm actually a taxi driver, and the fare back to town is $50.